But yes, congratulations to them. You've won it for the record 8th time. Let's see how it goes. My school dropped out in the quarterfinal. Several schools dropped out in the quarterfinal. Okay, and for the keynote address is going to be given us by Ernesto Usuafari, who's the MD Maridav Ghana Limited. Let's give him a round of applause. And keep applauding him because his school won the National Science and Math Quiz. Congratulations to you once again.
No hard feelings, I hope. Good morning, distinguished guests, and a very warm and special welcome, especially to our visitors from outside the country. I would like to just provide some perspective that I represent the private sector on the board of the Nuclear Power Institute of Ghana. I'm also a member of the governing board of Presbyterian Boys Secondary School. So thank you very much. Nuclear power projects and programs present a viable option for the African continent to explore alternative energy options as the world grapples with the challenges of climate change and the rising demand for clean energy. Africa's future hinges on creating energy security, ensuring reliability and affordability of power supply, particularly for African industries. This requires the creation of a conducive environment for the participation of local industry players, be they public sector or private sector participants, in the continent's nuclear power programs and projects. We know that embracing nuclear power entails meeting rigorous standards and requirements to ensure safety, efficiency, and security. And one crucial factor in ensuring the readiness of local industries to participate in the nuclear transition is the establishment of their capacity to meet these standards and requirements. Local industries must be well positioned to play a pivotal role in developing and implementing Africa's nuclear power programs and projects. Already, African industries are well positioned in several sectors required for the nuclear transition, cutting across manufacturing, engineering, construction, technical support, energy, all of which, when further resourced and developed, can achieve the strict standards and requirements for the nuclear power industry. Local industries on the continent have demonstrated their ability to adapt, develop, and meet standards in sectors like oil and gas, telecommunications, agriculture, and others. To ensure conformity with global nuclear safety standards, African nuclear regulatory authorities must continue to build strong regulatory structures that ensure adherence to the stringent regulations, requirements, and standards of the nuclear sector. It is essential that the nuclear regulatory authorities on the continent participate in the IAEA Nuclear Harmonization and Standardization Initiative, as this initiative has the potential to accelerate our nuclear ambitions. Furthermore, African industries should invest in the development of skilled human resources to implement the industrial expansion that is required to fuel economic growth. Specialized training programs and partnerships with reputable international institutions under various nuclear power programs will be crucial to develop the required expertise. Now, by fostering a culture of continuous learning and a systematic approach to training, we can ensure that our industries possess the needed competencies. Additionally, collaboration and strategic partnerships with established nuclear industries in advanced developed countries will be instrumental in building the local capacity for the transition. Therefore, we must seek technical assistance and knowledge transfer from these advanced nuclear countries. This will allow us to benefit from their technologies, their best practices, and their lessons learned. It is my hope that such partnerships will be further deepened to help us raise the capacity of our industries and to ensure that we meet global nuclear industry standards. Africa's nuclear energy success will not depend solely on the construction of nuclear power plants and the harnessing of the nuclear energy generated thereof, but even more so on how well and how much local industry participation is achieved over time. Governments must acknowledge the crucial roles of local industries in the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of the decades-long technology and financial commitments that nuclear power plants entail. We will gain several advantages for our economies, such as job creation, technology transfer, and the development of regional expertise. And through deliberate government policies, several countries across the globe have achieved this feat, and some of them are now a global force for nuclear technology development and deployment. African countries can emulate these examples with direct and deliberate government policies and interventions. Permit me a moment to highlight the important role that the private sector can and must play in the nuclear transition. In Ghana, for instance, the strive towards achieving energy sufficiency and security has had a strong underpinning of private sector participation. And it is gratifying that a fair number of independent power producers are indigenous Ghanaian companies who demonstrate the same level of efficiency as their counterparts from more advanced economies. And at the forefront of the transition to sustainable energy too are some indigenous Ghanaian companies. A case in point is the LMI Holdings Group, where I serve as a director, who are developers and managers of the Meridian Industrial Park and the Dawa Industrial Zone, two of the largest industrial parks in Ghana. LMI Holdings Group has invested heavily in renewable energy sources and electricity distribution infrastructure to provide clean, reliable, and cost-effective energy solutions for the industries operating within our industrial parks. We have already run across the problem that was highlighted by Professor Petticoat during the panel discussion just now, which is the fact that we need to balance these intermittent renewable energy supplies with the stable, dispatchable baseload that nuclear power plants can provide. And therefore, it is evident that indigenous Ghanaian firms have demonstrated their readiness for participation in the implementation of nuclear programs and projects by the works that we have already done and are doing in the energy sector. I strongly urge government collaboration with these players to speed up the adoption of nuclear technologies within the country and the continent at large. So in conclusion, I wish to reiterate that we must accept the challenge of developing an African nuclear energy industry with the highest standards and requirements as demanded by the global nuclear industry. It is only after positioning our local industries to take full advantage of the coming nuclear programs and projects that Africa can be assured of safely and effectively integrating nuclear power into our energy mix. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we must seize this opportunity to combat climate change through the safe adoption of nuclear power. Together, we can unlock the potential of nuclear power to meet our energy needs and ensure a sustainable future for generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ernest. One thing I didn't tell you about the PRESEC win and the way they lauded over everybody else. There's this, you know how they say success has many fathers? So everybody wants to associate with PRESEC. So one of the weirdest connections was a friend, I was chatting with a friend last night, said, you have to congratulate me. PRESEC is a boys' school, by the way, except for sixth form. At some point, they had some girls. Then she says, you have to congratulate me. I said, why? She says, yeah, because when I was doing my undergrad studies, I used to alight at the PRESEC junction. So yes. By virtue, I mean, if we're going by that, then everybody else in this room also qualifies because we're sitting with the PRESEC. So a round of applause to all of us. Next up, I'm inviting Seth Chum Akwabwa, the CEO of Association of Ghana Industries, who's going to chair the next panel. I'm not sure if he went to PRESEC. Seth. Yes, there he is. A round of applause as he makes his way. So he works as the Chief Executive Officer at the Association of Ghana Industries, which is a membership organization, membership organizations company with an estimated 25 employees and founded in 1957. He graduated from the University of Ghana, which is close to PRESEC Legon. Oh, he's actually a PRESECan. Oh, no. Can we have his... So, wow, another PRESECan. Says the best school. You didn't hear that. Okay, so joining him for the panel, or his panelists are going to be Maria Kosnick. A round of applause to her. Dr. Humphrey Eyim Dake, also of the Association of Ghana Industries. Okay. But he's represented by Kwame Jantuya. He's coming from the rear end, a good friend of mine. And then Vincent Annan, Western Region Chamber of Construction. And the Dr. Michael Goff. All right, so your panel.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations once again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Great to have all of you here. And indeed, I must commend the Nuclear Power Ghana for creating a whole session for industry. It underscores the importance to attach to industry and the key role that industry should play and can play and will play in this whole nuclear power program. So thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, we have very important panelists here. And as was mentioned, we are looking at the enabling environment and how private sector and industry in particular can effectively participate in this whole nuclear program. So our panelists have already been introduced. So I'll just go straight to some questions. And indeed, it's supposed to be an interaction. So any of you can also make comments on questions that are. But I will start from you, Marianne. We are in Ghana, and we know other countries have gone nuclear, concerning some lessons that we can learn from other countries from other countries that have gone nuclear. So again, what do we do to really benefit from nuclear power when it is established from the perspective of other countries? Thank you.
So the question was, from an industry perspective, what can be learned? And as we reflect on our experience with nuclear, is to share lessons learned. And one thing that we do, I think, pretty well in the United States is things. And they don't always have to be, of huge significance. For example, an outage where you're taking the plant. We share a lot of that information between companies, between that's the utility or the supplier. There's a lot of sharing. And you would often wonder, why would you share? Companies are technically in competition. From a nuclear, very close, like a family. And so even though you might be in competition, when it comes to being able to figure out how to do it better, there's always a lot of sharing of information. And I think that keeps the industry very close together and our feeling.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Jantua, the major challenge we have in Ghana, and it's not only in Ghana, other of nuclear power. Anytime we hear about nuclear power, we think of something else. And therefore, it seems to create a feet dragging in the whole process. But we all know the importance of it, all the discussions and all that. So you are coming from industry. You are sector. You're actually a sector chair in the Association of Ghana Industries. It's important to introduce that. What interest to us?
Thank you. We've had in the country, we weren't able to activate, and if we had done it that time, we would be sailing and would be on par with America where nuclear energy is concerned. But we shouldn't do it the Ghanaian way. And what do I mean by shouldn't do it the Ghanaian way? We should try as much as possible, now that we have started this trajectory, to bring industry along. We have to train industry. We have to have seminars with industry. We have to make sure that industry understands what it means to have nuclear. In the end, what is industry looking for? Electricity. That's all they're looking for. Started talking electric. Nobody ever dreamed in Ghana, nobody even thought in Ghana that it is something that we would do. But go look on the streets today, the electric cars on the streets. Today, Volta River Authority is constructing the docking stations where you charge electric cars. It's frightening, and it is how we train and get Ghanaians to understand this world and make it part of the curricula for them to understand. One of the major things I find with it is that, is it going to have today? And what would be the percentage of nuclear? Number two, is government going to use nuclear to generate power for something like Valco, where we can get quite a lot of returns from that? And so you use it to target big industry where the turnover is high. Or is it going to be like we do today, where we have electricity, it bring it down? And if it would bring it down, then it would earn industry quite a lot, because tariffs in this country are high. So on the that is the trajectory I see. And I think education would help make people understand and break the perception that nuclear is an evil that we don't have to go to.
Thank you. Maybe just a quick follow-up question, because you talked about the benefit in terms of tariffs, which is very important. Beyond that, are there other benefits that you think industries can obtain if you have a nuclear plant in Ghana?
It depends on the kind of industries that we are looking at. And for me, the industries should be such that it brings a quick return in government coffers. So, for instance, gold, which we have abundance of in this country. We need gold refined raw. If we can set up gold refinery companies in Ghana, where the private sector can also be part of, then we are not exporting gold whole. We are adding value, which creates more money. Cocoa industry, the bauxite industry, the manganese industry, all these big industries where we have natural resources for. If we can use solar to generate factories, to generate industry, it's good for the country. So yeah, the added value to nuclear, especially it being, and I hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the safest types of electricity that you can get.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and add to that. You said you wanted conversation.
Go ahead.
I would just share, for example, in the United States, many industries want to say that they're producing clean products or green products. Well, if they're using electricity that is from fossil fuels, et cetera, then they cannot say that their product is clean. So one of the values that we're seeing for nuclear power in the future is that they have these large factories, let's say a steel factory, and they want to then say that their steel is a clean steel. Then they need to produce all of the power used in that factory has to be from a clean source. Well, wind and solar is not enough. The steel factory needs a lot of energy, needs a lot of power. And so they're very much interested in nuclear. They might want the electricity from nuclear. They might want steam from nuclear. They might want even the hydrogen that they could get from nuclear. So they're looking more to these nuclear plants, not just to produce electricity, but to produce energy, and they might use that energy in their manufacturing system. But they're looking to have a nuclear plant dedicated to a manufacturing facility. That's a new idea, right? The past was just nuclear feeding electricity to the grid. The future is nuclear partnering with industry to produce products that are green, because the marketplace will pay more for that product if it's made from a clean resource.
That's interesting. Yes, so, but let's get others involved a bit also. So Vincent, you are from the Western region, and they say the best come from the West. So in Ghana, we had a lot of the mines are in the West. Oil and gas started and it's in the West. We don't know where the nuclear is going to be. But if it happens to be in the West, across the country, how prepared are we to take advantage of such a plant and such a program?
Right. Good morning. Yes, coming from Sekendita Kradi Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is the capital, Sekendita Kradi being the capital of the Western region. And Western region basically has been the base for the hub for all the minerals, basically in this country. So, who are the businesses there? The businesses in the region cut across all sectors: construction, logistics, port operations, engineering, fabrication, general maintenance, all of that. And we know that Ghana has mined gold for over a century. And that served as the basis for the oil and gas industry to spring in terms of supplies or companies and their capacities. The oil and gas came just about a decade ago, and so most of the contractors, most of the subcontractors that presently are providing services to this industry are contractors that were basically drawn from the mining sector. And so my expectation is that should the nuclear plant be built in the Western region, which I hope is likely to be the destination, basically, then we expect contractors in the present industry, mining and oil and gas, to upgrade themselves, embrace the new challenges, and be able to be in the supply chain effectively. One will ask, how can they achieve that? per our experience, especially in the time of the oil and gas, we have witnessed series of enterprise development services. So I'm coming back to the fact that enterprises in the Western region and in Ghana can best be in the mix, in the supply chain, when they get the needed business support services, local supplier development services. What we have seen so far in the Western region has been services that have always been planned elsewhere and be brought to just be implemented there. And most of them, if you go and try to look at the impact they've made so far, it's not very encouraging. It's not very, very encouraging. We will call for a service that will be a part of the system there, because some of us live there. We are business development consultants. We live there, we go to church. Everywhere we are discussing the issues of the day. Whereas, and so if local people are made, supported to provide such services to enterprises, the whole realization will be much easier. And also the objectives are more developed from the bottom up. As against what we see most of the time, projects come, they say 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then they go. When they go, there's nothing to trace. And also they come, and because they don't do a lot of, they don't diagnose the system well, in the end, they provide very similar services, and what I've seen is even attribution is a challenge. Which enterprise has benefited from what service and from which organization is even a problem. So this is a very huge enterprise, and we expect a kind of a collaboration, which has already started. The Ghana Nuclear Power has already started talking to the Western region. We've been having some Zoom meetings and trying to profile potential enterprises that can be in the supply chain. Another concern of us is government institutions and the enactment of regulations and enforcement of regulations. We think that there hasn't been a lot of institutions, state-owned enterprises, or the regulatory agencies, those in charge of occupational health and safety, for instance. We don't know where it is. And one challenge we have, because when the oil and gas industry came to being, the Chamber was one of the advocates for the passage of the Oil and Gas Local Content Bill into law in 2013. After its passage, it's exactly a decade now when it was passed.
Okay, so we'll come back to the policies and regulations and all that. But on the business side, you mentioned oil and gas, you mentioned mining and other big business operations that have taken place there. Have Ghanaians learned from these specific areas? And are we going to leverage, have we built some capacity that will enable us to take full advantage of the nuclear power when it's established within the supply chain, within the value chain? Have we learned some lessons? Have we built capacities? What can we do, or what has to be done in order to benefit fully from the nuclear power when it's established?
Yes, so I will say that we have really built capacities. We in various sectors. And presently, maybe I might not have to mention specific companies, but we have companies moving across the whole nation, especially in the mining sector, providing services to various mining companies. We have some even going to the extent of going international to Liberia, setting up businesses there to support their oil and gas discovery they are making. So we have made significant inroads. And I think that the length of time it took for local businesses to be able to become okay in the supply chain of the mining was shortened in the case of oil and gas. And we are looking at further shortening it in the case of nuclear.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Michael now. Michael, you are from the U.S., and U.S. we know is largely led by private sector in a lot of the business arrangements. So what is the perspective of the private sector and then private participation in nuclear power program in the US, and how has it impacted on improving the industry compared to other countries that are largely state-led? Can you share your perspective a bit with us?
So looking at the comparison, yeah, the state-led versus the private-led. The one thing I guess I want to really stress on the private-led that we have an advantage of is the innovation that comes from a private-led industry. I mean, I think the innovation system within the United States is really, second to none. The development of the different ideas, the different concepts, and the fact that we have so many different technologies out there, so many different vendors out there that are moving forward these technologies. I think that is one, that ecosystem for development and innovation is really strong in that private-led system. That again, can lead to a lot of different technologies that could be deployed as well. But even though it's still private-led, I want to go back to something that Maria brought up as well. It's still very much a learning industry. I mean, the nuclear industry does amaze me at how well, even though you have all individual utilities, different vendors, they really are a learning industry. If they have an issue, they identify it across the industry and learn and modify that. If you just look at the history of nuclear power in our country, even going back to the 3 Mile Island accident and stuff like that, the capacity factors of the plants back at those times were extremely low. They were less than 70%. They've just continue to improve and to get to the fact where you have our capacity factor for these power plants are 93% or so now. It's still, even though it's private sector and a lot of individual companies, it's individual companies that are working for a common good and are working together to make sure that they're executing extremely well. And again, can develop a lot of different technologies that can meet a lot of different needs of the countries and all like that. I hear some of the different uses, uses with mining, uses just for electricity production. There are technologies out there that, can be a really good match for all of those different uses because of that innovative system that's out there right now. So.
Interesting. So you want to make okay. You want to ask a question?
Yes,
Okay.
I want to find something out from my colleague. When you look at America and the nuclear system they have there, they have gone through it over the years, so they've been able to perfect it. I would want my two colleagues from America to tell us, when they started, as we are starting, what were some of the challenges that industry faced? What was the mindset of industry then? Because it was new. I'm sure you have had nuclear power for what, over how many years now?
Over 60 years.
Over 60 years now. When you started, that we are starting now, what can we, industry, learn from some of the things you started with that would make it easier for us to accept and use nuclear? For me, that's where the interest is, because you're way gone.
Okay.
You're far off.
I can take a start and then.
Maria wants to start and then.
Yeah, and then I can share. I mean, as with anything, when you begin, you're not perfect. And so I would say when our companies began, as what Mike Goff just shared, our capacity factor, and capacity factor is the amount of time that the plant is running and producing power. They were lower. Oftentimes, people were trying to better understand how some of these systems were designed, and in some cases, it would cause the plant to shut down. It was all safe. It wasn't a safety issue, but you put the plant together to run. You wanted electricity. And so it caused folks to get together and say, well, what are my challenges? What are my issues? How come the systems aren't working as well together as what we had imagined? And that's what I shared to begin with, the learning, right? People really took to better understand and learn better about some things that actually had been designed into the systems that would be better if they were designed a different way. And so we've had many, many years of learning and sharing those learnings amongst companies. I mean, to get into the detail, for example, the logic that is put into some systems, that would cause a system to turn off. You know, do you need 1 of 3 sensors? Do you need 2 of 4 sensors? You know, how many system signals do you need in order for certain actions to happen? And so we took a lot of that information and over the years have designed in better, better resilience. To the benefit of Ghana, I would say you don't have to learn that. You should not begin where we began 60 years ago because there are better improvements that you will begin with. So yes, I'm sure you will have your own learnings, but I would hope that you would benefit from the experience. And we should have collaboration with the folks from Ghana, with the folks from the US that have a lot of this experience. And I would expect Ghana to start much higher in your expertise than we did 60 years ago.
The one other thing that I would add on that too, that I think we've probably learned, you know, we have 93 plants out there operating. We didn't do a lot of standardization in those plants. A lot of them were one-offs. We made variations in the plants as we were going along. So we didn't do a lot, even though they were, you know, there's a lot of Westinghouse plants and GE plants, everyone wanted to vary their plant slightly when they were building it. So we didn't get into as much standardization of a design that, you know, that you could benefit from the replication, assuming you're looking at building out a fleet. So choosing, it doesn't mean you just have to choose one design, but if you're choosing a couple of designs, go with a standardized design and don't necessarily, you know, keep varying from plant to plant to plant. So you get some of that replication and building out. You're not always building out first-of-a-kind plants.
Great.
And it's more than just the design of a system, too. It's also the procedures that you use. You know, when I was a chief nuclear officer, I was responsible for 5 reactors at 3 different locations. And, you know, at any moment, I could pick up a phone and I could call another chief nuclear officer in the United States and I would say, I want to better understand why this procedure is giving us a hard time. Can you send people to my plant and sit down and talk to my folks? Or I could take the person that was responsible and send them to their plant and sit down with their folks to better understand. When I say that we have a family in the United States around nuclear, that's what I mean. Even if our 2 companies competed in the marketplace for electricity, we would share resources and share information very readily, and we still do that today.
Great. So you talked about collaboration, and we're talking of lessons, and for us as industry players, we are very interested in partnering, taking advantage of technologies, expertise, funds that could be available. So Michael, can you tell us a bit about which areas, you know, within the private sector that the US companies can partner Ghanaian companies, or Ghanaian companies should seek collaboration to better position us for such a big venture in the country?
Yeah, and I think that is an important thing to be looking at as you're going forward. Specifically, let's talk about the supply chain kind of. There are lots of opportunities for collaboration in the supply chain. So as you're looking at your technology vendor, you're going to start having discussions with that vendor on what components within that supply chain are really open to localization. Because I think most of them are looking at it, realizing that, you know, countries are going to want to localize these things as much as they can. So I think that's very important as you're starting to think about the building out and think about it. In fact, I was glad to hear the comment where the government is starting to reach out to industry. Identify what areas that, you know, you think are the great areas for you to be able to work on the supply chain. Because I will bring up the supply chain for the nuclear industry, you know, nuclear, it's very broad. There are hundreds of different, you know, if I look at the United States, we have hundreds and hundreds of companies that work in the supply chain. And even with the fact that we have 93 reactors, we still don't have all the, you know, we don't fill out all the buckets for the supply chain. We do rely on international components for a large portion of the supply chain. So no country is going to come in and do everything. So I think it's very important as you start those discussions with your government, identify where is your expertise, whether it's, you know, the expertise that's come from the oil industry and stuff like that. that you think that you can bring to that supply chain and start that discussion with the vendor to be able to see how to qualify that company to be able to provide nuclear grade materials for it, but start really identifying what key areas that Ghana or whatever country in Africa wants to bring to that table and focus on getting those ready for that supply chain. Because it's like I say, you don't want to do everything. Even we don't want to do everything in the supply chain. Look at which areas you really want to focus on to bring value to that technology there. And one other thing I guess I also want to stress too before I forget about it though is, sometimes people don't want to go first on, deployment of new technologies. I'll say one thing though that to keep in mind is with respect to the supply chain in the region, the country that goes first is often going to be the one that's going to be setting up the supply chain for the region. So from a business perspective, there's a lot to be gained from being first in the region, because if that technology continues to move out in that region, you've set your country up well to be able to the supply chain for not just only your country, but all the countries in that region as well. So yeah, be thinking about as far as timing and all like that. What do you want to do from a regional perspective as far as on the supply chain?
Great. So Mr. Jantua, I think he's brought about the issue of supply chains, and we've had some lessons in the oil and gas industry, we've had some lessons in the mining industry. Can you share with us the experience we've had in these industries and how we can really reposition or properly position ourselves so that when it comes to nuclear power, Ghanaian industries could also benefit from the supply chain? What are the key elements that we need to really pick to be able to learn from it?
Where is the target? That's what I asked. My brother was talking about Ghanaian industries. How many indigenous Ghanaian industries are in the mining sector? How many indigenous Ghanaian industries are in the oil and gas sector? And that is the challenge. Where is the target? For me, supply chains are important. However, nuclear is going to be part of the mix. And if it's going to be part of the mix, how are we planning that mix? Are we saying renewable energy goes into residential? So all your solar panels and everything, every house should have a solar panel, so that at least on the residential side is taken care of. Currently, I have learned, and I learned yesterday, that business would follow power. And what do I mean by that? Ghana Gas at the present moment is a distributor of power. And when you go to the western region, Takoradi, Cape Coast, those areas, Ghana Gas is supplying power to industries there. And they are saying to us that, look, we have the capacity to supply more power to different industries and different companies, but the companies aren't here. So today, they are supplying 6 ceramic companies. 5 of those ceramic companies are Chinese. They are not indigenous Ghanaian. And so how do we build indigenous Ghanaians to be part and parcel of consuming some of this energy? Yes, you'd have the supply chains in there, but the supply chains, are they indigenous Ghanaian supply chains? Or are they supply chains that are coming to feed industries that are here? And for me, if we are not deliberate in getting indigenous companies to be part and parcel of building the kind of industries we're looking for to pick the country up, then we are serving international mining companies where sometimes you get a lot of capital flight. Because what are they doing? They are producing the gold, they are sending it out as bullion, they are refining it out there, the money stays out there and doesn't come back into the country for our banks. Last week, I went to a seminar on the NDPC to do with capital flight. And we were told Ghana loses $5 billion every month because of capital flight. If you're not creating indigenous, where the indigenous companies can take advantage of the electricity that is being supplied, and the money stays in Ghana, how do you then get the economies of these countries picking up. For me, that is where the challenge is. And it's got to do with how government looks at the policy, how government looks at the regulator, how government looks at the framework of the laws that are going to be put in place, how Parliament understands what it means for some of these things to lift industry up. So that's some of the challenges we face, even with the supply chains.
I would just add to that, and I appreciate your perspective. It's not often that you are in a position to look ahead and see with certainty something that's going to happen in an industry. Today, we all sit in a position of certainty. Industry around the world is going to be a thriving industry for many decades to come. And as a result of seeing that certainty, you are in a wonderful position knowing that that's going to happen. In companies in business that can today begin to form that supply chain for the future. If you're not sure if something's going to happen, you got to be a little tentative as to whether or not you want to invest in it. I can share with you with certainty, there is no question that the nuclear industry around the world will be thriving. And that means a lot of power plants, a lot of pumps, a lot of valves, a lot of pieces and parts, and you can pick and choose which part of that supply chain that you would like to get into, but it would be a sure bet, in my opinion.
Interesting.
Just to give an example, just to give a quick example, ExxonMobil came into Ghana, didn't they? ExxonMobil were given a field, weren't they? What did they decide to do? They decided it wasn't a field that would be profitable for them. So where did they go? They went into Guyana. What are ExxonMobil doing today? I watched a program on ExxonMobil on CNBC. And what ExxonMobil are doing today, they are converting their crude oil into plastic pellets, and they're using those pellets to build panels for electric cars. Because they found that the panels on combustible cars today are too heavy for electric cars. Ghana, we have oil, we have lithium. We can convert our oil into that, and we can build batteries from our lithium. All these take power, and massive power. Government has to be able to decide we are going to go down this route and see alternatives we can get out of our crude oil. And if those alternatives can work, then you target companies, deliberately target companies, indigenous companies that can go in there. Then you start an industry that way, and then it spreads, and there are other affiliates that come into the mix. But you've got to do it with a plan. Unfortunately, in Ghana today, our plan tends to be manifestos of political parties, which makes it very, very difficult for continuity to take place when that particular political party is no more in power. So the planning of it is key. And I think it's up to industry to push government to see that the planning of industry with the kind of power that we're looking at, and from what my colleague is saying, where nuclear is going to be, we need to start that process and start that process now.
So yes. Great. Thank you for clapping for them. I think my panelists really deserve a good round of applause. They've done very well. But we still have some few minutes. So I'll ask one or two questions, and then we also allow you to maybe make some contributions as well. I think the issue here concerning local participation and local companies building capacity to take advantage of it, it comes from two ways. The local businesses themselves must be ready, prepared to take the risk, have the right systems and structures to be able to take full advantage. But also the second leg is government. the role of government in all this. And I remember you started talking about policy and government. Can you share a bit light on maybe your experiences, because you working in a chamber, there's been engagement with government over the years. And what has been the attitude of government when it comes to engaging on matters of this nature, local content, supply chain, and all that? And learning from there and coming to nuclear power, what can we do to really ensure that we get attention of government as private sector operators to get the maximum benefit? Can you share some experiences on that?
Okay, thank you. One or two things. Number one, businesses in the enclave have had a challenge in meeting requirements. And it is that most of them try to serve multinational businesses operating in different sectors, like oil and gas, and then also serve mining. Also because oil and gas is taking advantage of mining structures. The challenge here is that mining has its own expectations in terms of occupational health and safety, in terms of quality, but especially health and safety. Mining industry has its own. And the challenge is that each mining company even has its own requirements, same as the oil and gas. Each oil and gas company has its own occupational health, safety and environment expectations from management systems that potential contractors must have in their institutions. So it is expected of government, and I remember we, through that, instituted an annual health and safety, we called it Ghana Industry Safety Conference, where we bring industry and contractors and regulators together to share ideas. And in one of the editions, we proposed for the harmonization of all the requirements. And I think the ministry embraced it. We had support from ILO to the extent that we're going to even have one regulator in charge of occupational health and safety, such that the systems will not run businesses down. They won't be confused. Going into the future, if we streamline this and then nuclear also comes in, then we're going to have a further different requirement altogether. Of course, nuclear might require more stiffer compliance and requirements. We expect that there should be some level of harmonization in terms of what is required in industry generally, based on which a lot of, once enterprises have been able to meet those thresholds, then it's easy to go into specific requirements as expected and laid out by different industries. So that is one expectation industry, or as an association we expect, and we are working with government to help us get over. The other side, we're picking from Mr. Jantua about how many local businesses are currently operating. It's so very, very true. I, in Takrada, have visited a lot of these ceramics and sanitary producing companies run by Chinese. And if you look at the trucks, there are tons of products moving, even by road to Cote d'Ivoire and Liberia, and by road to the port for export. It tells the kind of energy they are consuming, and also comes back to the availability of the energy. And so we ask ourselves, so it's our normal clay that they are extracting to produce all of these. And so how come Ghanaians like AGI former President Mr. Addison, who was an industrialist, if he was alive today, he could have taken advantage. But what is happening? I think that it should also behove on the local authorities, the district assemblies, must be positioned to work to promote local businesses.
Great. So you're talking of engagement at the local level, district assembly level.
Exactly.
Central government and other. Maybe we should pick some lessons, quick lessons from the U.S. We know the U.S. is slightly private sector led. However, Michael, what would you advise? What should private sector in Ghana? We want to actively participate in this. We lack capacity. We don't have so much funds. We don't have so much expertise. But we want to go to our government and say, government, work with us. What should we demand of our government in order to enhance our capacity and position us very well? Maybe from the U.S. point of view, can you share some experience or advice? What should we do in order to get the best out of our government, and how do we even approach it? Can you share some experience with us?
Well, in our case, I mean, we are right now trying to incentivize in the U.S., our clean energy industry out there. We're trying to incentivize the supply chain for nuclear because it's clean energy. So I got to be clear. I'm not trying to give Ghana advice on what your government should do. What ours has done, though, is we are trying to incentivize that through various incentives like investment tax credits. We try to incentivize more with positive things as opposed to negatives. So we're tax credits as opposed to tariffs or something along those lines. So in our case, some of the things that we've done through our bipartisan infrastructure law or the Inflation Reduction Acts that were passed recently that had a lot of focus on moving forward on clean industry is, like I say, an investment tax credit that can be used for companies that are set up to provide materials that are needed for the clean industry. So that's a lot of the things that we've been doing right now to incentivize, again, new capacity for the new clean industry out there that's needed right now. So.
Great. Thank you. Maria, you wanted to add something?
Well, I was just share, often we do public-private partnerships, and you can see that. I saw a gentleman here earlier from X-Energy, and that would be a great example of the government partnering with the private sector to build a nuclear plant in this particular case and to design it, and then also working with the private sector, in this case Dow Chemical, to be a part of the actual build and then using the power that we're talking about for their business, and their business is a chemical business. So there's another example where you have sort of this public-private connection to help move forward. And so again, I think there are ways that rather than ask the government to sort of do something or do everything, form it as a partnership between the local industry and the government, so both sides are invested in the success.
Just a quick one. And guys, forgive me. I'm going to put the cat amongst the pigeons. In Ghana, and let's not talk about, the big companies and those who are running big companies. My main interests are the ordinary man going into business. On that level, business is like a marriage. Nobody teaches us how to get married and how we handle our marriages. We learn on the job. And you find that in Ghana, those businesses, they learn on the job. So they make quite a lot of mistakes, and by the time they realize and learn from it, some of them are too old to even continue. So how do we identify that and try as much as possible to put right schemes in place to hold their hands and move them through the trajectory? It's something that is difficult in Ghana. The second thing is access to finance. Major problem. We've got to have a situation where we can get companies, my American friends are here, where companies can go out there and bring money in. You were talking about joint venture and how you work together. In Ghana, joint ventures don't work. We don't trust each other to have joint ventures. So I bring my strength, you bring your strength, we put it together. It doesn't work. These are some of the new things we should try and put into industry to make it easier for us to go out there and bring finance in. Because the banks we have today, they really and truly cannot finance the kind of big businesses we're looking at. And you've got a lot of youth here. I'm nearer my grave than they are near their graves. And so it's important that we can encourage the youth to go down the line that we didn't tread, but they would be able to tread to make a success of what they want to do earlier in life than later in life. So if you have all the power, and there's no business to consume that power, then what's the use of having the power?
So thank you very much. When it comes to private sector issues, I think there's a lot more we can discuss, but we have been told that there is actually a special session later in the afternoon or so for open discussions. So for that reason, unfortunately, we cannot do Q&A at this session. So I don't know how many minutes we have, but if we are done with our session, then I will thank our panelists. I think we should give them a big round of applause again. I think we've all learned a lot, and there's a lot we have to carry along as advocates of industries, as private sector trying to seek investment, seek opportunities, meeting standards, and collaboration with our counterparts from the US. I think this is a big program that we should all embrace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Seth. Seth Shumabakwa is the CEO of Association of Ghana Industries. Thank you, Seth, and your panelists. We have a token of appreciation that we want to present to you. So if you could kindly step to the front, we'll take some photographs and then we'll hand over your tokens to you, after which we'll disperse for lunch. And Shakur is going to be handing out the tokens. But thanks very much again. I think they deserve another round of applause. Please come to the front. Can we have you? I have to invite the other pre-second so that he can join them to receive the tokens. All right. Great. Then right after that, the photographers would want to have a group photo of you with your tokens. All right. Thank you very much. So we're taking a break for lunch. And this time we're not going to the lawn. Again, we're not going to the lawn for lunch, but we're going to the balcony as you make your way through the corridor to, like you're exiting, that area has been set up for lunch. So that's where we're going to be having our lunch. Let's do lunch now and come back in 45 minutes so that at 1 o'clock we're going to have our next session. Thank you very much and enjoy lunch. All right, so good afternoon once again, and you're welcome back from lunch. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. If you didn't enjoy or you skipped lunch, well, there'll be a coffee break, another coffee break later on, so you can have something. But I'm sure most of you enjoyed your lunch because it took you quite a while to come back into the auditorium. Yep. All right, so the next one of the key things that comes up anytime nuclear is mentioned is about safety. People are wondering, how safe is nuclear? But this is what we're going to discuss now. So hopefully we can get to address all the questions that you have. But if they are not, we're going to have a roundtable discussion as we did yesterday after. And there we're going to discuss and take your questions and get all your questions addressed. Now, to give us a keynote for this session is Honorable David Wright, who is a commissioner, U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Before I invite him, I'm going to tell you a bit about him. He was first sworn in as a commissioner of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission on May 30, 2018. He's currently serving a term ending June 30, 2025. He was owner, president of Right Directions, LLC, a strategic consulting, policy development, and communications business focusing on energy and water. During this time, he also was a member of the Advisory Council of the Bipartisan Policy Center's Nuclear Waste Initiative and an ex-officio member and chairman emeritus of the Nuclear Waste Strategy Coalition, an ad hoc organization representing the interests of industry, state officials, local governments, and tribes, and consumer advocates. Let's welcome him with a round of applause. Honorable David Wright.
Let me adjust this. I'm vertically challenged, as you can see. So I can see what I'm doing here. It's a little bit high, but I'm good. So good afternoon. My name is David Wright, as you've heard, and I am one of 5 commissioners at the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And it's really great to be here with you this week, and thank you to the summit organizers for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts today on regulating the nuclear industry. And I was just telling Israel before I came to the podium here that my father was in radio and television for over 80 years, and he was also a stand-up comic, so there's future too for you. So before I get started, I'd like to thank the Ghanaian government, the United States Department of Energy, the U.S. Embassy, and everyone involved in coordinating this event for putting together such an impressive agenda. And I'm going to have to take a little point of personal privilege right here to personally thank Shakur Walker, who is responsible, I think, for really doing he's in the back, wave your hand, Shakur. And Shakur is part of my team, part of Team Wright. Mm-hmm. I'd also like to thank Dr. Jennifer Gordon for the excellent job she did yesterday and will do today, moderating the panel on the 60 years of nuclear power experience we've had in the United States, and then today on regulating the industry. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you a little bit more about my regulatory perspectives. Today I'm going to be sharing with you what's going on in my home country in terms of regulation, and I plan to share my perspectives on the NRC's international activities, particularly on our ongoing cooperation with the Ghana Nuclear Regulatory Authority. Before I do that, I want to also express how glad I am to be here in Accra. Although I work in Washington, D.C., Columbia, South Carolina is my home, and I try to spend time there whenever I get a chance. So if you've ever been to Columbia, South Carolina, you may know that it is the capital of our state. You also may know that it has a famous university there, the University of South Carolina. What you may not know is that Columbia and this city have been sister cities since 2011. This special relationship was kicked off in 2014 when Columbia's mayor, at that time Steve Benjamin, welcomed a delegation from Accra and then later visited here himself. And just last year, the Columbia World Affairs Council hosted a delegation from Ghana, including your mayor, Elizabeth Saki. The South Carolina legislature, where I once served, passed a resolution welcoming her and inviting her to participate in several key events. So the goal of the Sister City program, which was started in 1956, is to create global relationships based on cultural, educational, information, and trade exchanges. It's also to develop friendships that can promote peace and prosperity through person-to-person citizen diplomacy. So I would encourage all of you, practice a little diplomacy this week and make some new friends. So moving on to the nuclear portion of this presentation, as many of you know, the NRC is an independent agency that regulates the peaceful use of nuclear technology in the United States. The NRC and its predecessor, the Atomic Energy Commission, have more than 60 years of experience regulating the world's largest nuclear power program. Over that time, the industry was born, developed, and changed considerably, requiring the NRC to adapt how we license and oversee nuclear power. As the industry's evolution continues to accelerate, it's important that we identify enhancements to our processes while continuing to fulfill our nuclear safety and security mission. For example, the NRC is having pre-application engagements with more than 15 vendors working on an array of different small, modular, and advanced reactors. We have also engaged with industry groups, research organizations, government agencies, national laboratories, and international counterparts to maintain awareness of new technologies and understand the potential regulatory needs that might be required. To ensure we're ready to regulate the full spectrum of new reactor technologies, the NRC has made considerable progress in developing a technology-inclusive, risk-informed, and performance-based licensing framework for advanced reactors and SMRs. This new rule, which I referred to a little bit yesterday, is called 10 CFR Part 53, and it aims to strike a balance between flexibility and predictability, providing clear performance-based requirements and allowing vendors to propose unique approaches to demonstrating the safety of their design. The Commission in August also updated our requirements for emergency preparedness, allowing alternatives for SMRs and other new technologies in recognition of their smaller footprint and potential hazard. This risk-informed approach allows more flexibility than traditional one-size-fits-all approaches to emergency planning that we had previously used. As our principles of good regulation tell us, we must keep in mind that independence does not mean isolation. The NRC's business is the public's business. Therefore, in all that we do, it's important for us to be clear about our role. The NRC provides independent oversight, making decisions exclusively to protect public health and safety, and not for economic or political reasons. We conduct our work, we conduct it transparently, providing key information through a comprehensive website, open meetings, and a vast online database. In fact, in a typical year, the NRC conducts about 1,000 public meetings. This openness allows the public to see, understand, and to participate in NRC decision-making, contributing to public confidence in the safety and security of nuclear power in the United States. Engagement with interested stakeholders, both domestically and internationally, is key to the success of our regulatory efforts. Therefore, and similar to my colleagues and predecessors on the NRC, I'm a strong proponent of international engagement. In 2014, the Commission issued an international policy statement which reinforced that international activities are integral to the NRC's mission and directly support U.S. foreign policy objectives and the NRC's domestic mission. We also have an international strategy for 2021 through 2025. This strategy's overall goal is to foster and maintain collaboration with international counterparts and multilateral organizations to positively influence global and domestic nuclear safety and security. You can view this policy statement and our international strategy on our public website, which you can easily find by Googling NRC International Programs. International cooperation is vital to the success of the NRC's critical domestic safety mission. This cooperation helps us to learn from one another, ensures timely sharing of operating experience, and advances global nuclear safety, security, and non-proliferation goals. The NRC's regulatory partnerships are critical to the continued high levels of nuclear energy safety, particularly given the interest in new and developing technologies. I believe that engagements such as the dialogue this week that we're having allow regulatory partners and other stakeholders to share and discuss valuable information regarding institutional safety and security priorities that will help to shape our domestic programs. With these goals in mind, the NRC is engaged in a wide range of bilateral and multilateral activities that contribute to enhancing the safety and security of nuclear activities worldwide. This engagement enables us to share best practices and lessons learned. It deepens our understanding of different perspectives and ensures we don't make decisions in a vacuum. To facilitate this information exchange, we have more than 50 bilateral agreements, including one with Ghana's NRA, as well as with regulatory counterparts in almost every country with a power reactor program. These agreements facilitate technical exchanges, regulatory information sharing, personnel exchanges, and regulatory assistance. And these exchanges contribute to nuclear safety and security worldwide. So I'd like to offer a few specifics about our cooperation with our Ghanaian friends. The NRC has been working with Ghana since the NRA's inception. We signed our inaugural bilateral agreement with the NRA in 2017. Since then, we've engaged frequently on a variety of nuclear energy safety and security related topics as Ghana develops a regulatory oversight program for nuclear power. On a personal note, I'm happy that I was able to meet Professor Abo back when he visited the United States in 2019 at our RIC conference. We had a great time discussing opportunities to cooperate on safe nuclear technology, and plus, he actually went to where I went to school, Clemson University, for 2 years. So it was nice to meet a fellow Clemson man. We've worked bilaterally with the NRA on the full spectrum of nuclear regulatory issues, most recently on standard review plans for nuclear power plants. The NRC has collaborated with Ghana on its public communication strategy, development of regulatory requirements, licensing and oversight of radiation sources, use of industry codes and standards, reactor siting, and application reviews. In addition to our regulator-to-regulator collaboration, we've been a part of broader government-to-government engagement. For example, in partnership with the United States State Department's Foundational Infrastructure for Responsible Use of Small Modular Reactor Technology, or the FIRST program, the NRC presented a workshop last year to the NRA and other Ghanaian stakeholders on licensing and regulatory oversight of SMRs. Right now, we're coordinating virtual training on reactor concepts and power plant engineering, foundational training that the NRC requires as part of our own inspector qualification program. We are actively exploring additional areas of collaboration, including additional work on radiological source oversight. We're also pleased to partner with the NRA and other African regulators through the Forum of Nuclear Regulatory Bodies in Africa. The FNRBA is an International Atomic Energy Agency regional network that the NRC has supported over many years, most recently through a workshop on environmental impact assessment for nuclear power plants held here this past February. The goal of the NRC's international assistance is to support other regulators as they build their oversight programs. Here in Ghana, we're working to help the NRA prepare to review a license application, make well-informed regulatory decisions, and exercise strong regulatory oversight of nuclear power. This is a long-term partnership that will endure independent of what reactor type Ghana ultimately chooses. We will not tell the NRA how to run its program. We know from our long-standing relationship that they have the technical expertise to develop the program that will work best for Ghana. But we will be here to provide support to the NRA as it continues developing that technical, competent, independent regulatory program. I believe that all of us here share the goal of safe and secure use of nuclear power. In summary, the NRC stands ready to help the NRA as it prepares for a significantly expanding workload. We've licensed over 100 light water reactors in the United States, and we stand ready to share our experience in doing that, both positive and negative. We've also certified a small modular reactor design, and we're working on approving the designs for several others. We're working both bilaterally and through International Atomic Energy Agency programs to ensure that our partners can benefit and leverage our licensing experience and not recreate the wheel. So I'd like to conclude by thanking you once again for joining us at the summit this week, and I look forward to some very interesting presentations, panel discussions, and informal conversations around the margins of this event. So thank you very much, and please enjoy the rest of the program.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Welcome, everyone. I'm Jennifer Gordon, and I'm the director of the Atlantic Council's Nuclear Energy Policy Initiative. And before we begin, I also would like to thank the U.S. Department of Energy, especially the Office of Nuclear Energy, and most especially Deputy Assistant Secretary Alicia Duncan and her wonderful team. I also would like to thank the Nuclear Power Institute of the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission. Welcome once again to our in-person audience, and welcome as well to our virtual audience. We are live streaming this panel on social media and on Twitter at AC Global Energy, and we are also streaming at ACTV, or Atlantic Council TV. So with that, I am delighted to introduce each of our panelists. Dr. Ni Kwashi Alote, who is Director General of the Ghana Nuclear Regulatory Authority. The Honorable David A. Wright, who now needs no introduction, but he is Commissioner of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And M.C. Hammond, who is General Attorney at the Office of General Counsel in Civilian Nuclear Programs at the U.S. Department of Energy. So let's begin. Dr. Alote, your mandate is to authorize and regulate the civilian use of nuclear and other radioactive sources in Ghana. Talk to us a little bit about nuclear regulation in Ghana, especially regarding the research reactor, and tell us about how the regulatory ecosystem here has been developed.
Well, thank you very much. Well, in 2015, the government enacted the Nuclear Regulatory Authority Act, Act 2015, that is actually Act 895. And actually that set up the Nuclear Regulatory Authority, and which actually has the main purpose of regulating all the civilian use of nuclear energy and radiation in the country. Prior to this, the Radiation Protection Board of the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission was the one regulating all nuclear energy and radiation issues in Ghana. But actually, we needed to actually divide as a country the operators from the regulators. So based on that, in 2015, the NRA was actually formed, and it took a group of staff from the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission to the regulatory authority. Now, the Nuclear Regulatory Authority is a 3S regulator, so we actually deal with nuclear safety, nuclear security, and nuclear safeguard. And actually, all this is housed in one directorate called the Nuclear Installations Directorate. So actually, that deals with nuclear installations and everything linked to that. Now, we also have another directorate called the Radiological and Non-Ionizing Directorate, and they regulate all radioactive sources and radiation emitting devices. And actually, these come from the medical sector, the industry sector, mainly mining and actually oil and gas and the construction sector, and then also research also. So in regards to regulation of our research reactor, we actually have one research reactor in Ghana, which is actually called the GA1. We went with Commissioner Wright there this morning to actually have a tour of the place. And what do you call it? This is actually owned and operated by the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission. And actually, as is required, they are the prime, they actually have the prime responsibility for safety, security, and safeguards, but the NRA offers all the regulatory oversight that actually must take place. So actually, we actually ensure that we license them based on license submittals that they provide, and also facility inspections that we actually carry out. And another thing is that we also license all their operators. All the operators must make sure that they are licensed to be able to operate the plant. And one typical, one particular thing that we actually did was that between 2016 and 2017, we actually changed the core of the reactor from a highly enriched uranium core to a low enriched uranium core. And in this case, the regulatory authority provided all the regulatory oversight to actually get that done. So actually, this gives a nutshell of the regulatory ecosystem that we have in Ghana now. Thank you.
Dr. Olote, thank you so much. And as I said yesterday, even as we're looking at the full nuclear energy ecosystem, I truly believe that the regulators hold the key to unlocking that ecosystem. And so it's really incredible to learn so much from you about the regulatory ecosystem that exists here already. Commissioner Wright, talk to us a little bit about the NRC's role, which I know you mentioned previously in your keynote remarks, but its role in licensing U.S. reactor designs and the implications of that work for U.S. civil nuclear exports.
So, thank you again for the question. I want to be sure that I understand the export part of this for you. When we do, as I mentioned, we've done 100 licenses. We've done, we've been here 50 years. We've got a myriad of designs that are before us right now. So I think it's important for us to stay on top of what the country needs and what we need domestically, right? We need to be timely in everything that we do. As I mentioned yesterday, we take a hard look at all aspects of the design of the reactor, and from comes from the fuel to the reactor vessel to including piping, the containment of everything, surrounding everything, and our reviews are robust. And I guess the focus is always on safety and security, but for our people and our public in the United States and to our counterparts of like-minded countries around the world, when you get a design approved by the NRC, you know it's safe. Okay, and you know it's going to operate. So I think that's critically important that we do that. Now, because we don't do it that way, the converse is not good. It's not a good outlook. It's not good for us. It's not good for those countries. So we recognize that promoting worldwide nuclear safety and security means supporting also the infrastructure that undergirds that, right? So we've got to make sure that, we have 50 international regulatory counterparts. We don't want to regulate in a vacuum. We need to make sure that we understand what needs are and how we can best work to help them and assist them. So we've licensed, it's safe. Okay.
Commissioner Wright, thank you so much. About how your office engages with the NRC and how your work on civilian nuclear programs from within DOE differs from the role of the NRC.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Dr. Gordon. I think this question requires a little bit of history on the U.S. Regulatory regime in terms of how the DOE and the NRC interact together. We passed our Atomic Energy Act in 1954, and that stood up the Atomic Energy Commission, which at the time was responsible for just about all aspects of the nuclear regulatory program, from defense to domestic and civilian. And then similar to what happened in Ghana when they split out the GAEC and the NRA, in 1974, Congress passed the Energy Reorganization Act and split out the responsibilities between the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, stood up the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and the other activities went into the Department of Energy. So now the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is responsible for the regulation and licensing and safety, public health and safety for our civilian nuclear programs and all aspects of that chain, whereas the Department of Energy, we do a lot of promotion of nuclear energy. We have a lot of the R&D. I think you all yesterday heard from the folks at our labs that are working on a lot of those research and development initiatives. And my role in the council's office at the Department of Energy is to work with our client in the Office of Nuclear Energy to help develop those awards and agreements to those nuclear startups and those new companies as they work on their research technology. This is, it helps ensure that, say for example, we're doing research and development, we want to make sure that, this taxpayer-funded research and development, the intellectual property provisions are protected if we need that for future use in the United States. We also have started developing a lot of milestone-based award programs. So when we present these awards to folks, they're based on the awardees achieving certain milestones in order to get their funding. And if they don't get the funding, then we have that taxpayer money protected. And so that's a lot of our engagement on that. On the other side, we also deal a lot with on the Department of Energy, the Price-Anderson Act is also split between the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the Department of Energy. That's our nuclear liability law. So any DOE contractors are indemnified under the Department of Energy, and that encourages work for our contractors to do this types of research and development and other work with the Department of Energy.
Ms. Hammond, thank you so much for that incredibly useful overview and to, again, really understand the differences between the NRC and then the legal components of DOE. Dr. Olote, I'd like to go to you because you recently signed an MOU with the US NRC for cooperation and exchange of technical information. And Ghana, as I believe we heard about yesterday, has also adopted the IAEA's milestones approach for countries that are considering or planning their first nuclear power plant. So could you talk to us a little bit about your engagements with the NRC and also with the IAEA?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Section 50 of our Act 895, it requires us to actually engage with other regulatory bodies from other countries and also other multilateral organizations. So the NRA, since it began, has actually sought out to actually make sure that we actually cooperate with a lot of other organizations, both in Africa and beyond. Okay, so we've actually signed a lot of cooperation agreements with a lot of countries, and we do that. It's helpful for us because we are a young regulator in the field, so it's important to actually learn from mature regulators. Now, with the NRC, like Chairman Wright has already said, we signed our technical cooperation agreement in 2017, the first one, and we renewed it in September 2022. Okay, so that's not long ago. And our support from the NRC, I don't know how to start because Chairman Wright has talked a lot about it. It has been very, very fundamental to us. The US NRC, like we know, is a very mature, it's a very foremost mature regulator. They've been in the field for a long time, and they've actually had a lot of lessons that they've actually learned through all the business that they've actually been in. So for us, all our workshops, computer codes that they've given to us, document, what do you call it, reviews. We actually do some documents, we send to them, they review it, and they bring to us. All of that has been very, very helpful because we've been working with partners from their side who are actually industry experts. And actually, they've been able to guide our staff as to what they should do, and etc. So, how do you call it? We are actually hoping to strengthen this relationship. And one of the good things is that, what do you call it? Ghana has not yet chosen a partner as to which country we are going with, but we've been able to rely on the USNRC strongly, even though we've actually not chosen where we are going. So their support has been fundamental and very, very helpful for us. So we actually appreciate this this cooperation we have with them, and hopefully it will actually help us to move forward. Now, what do you call it? In terms of the IAEA, Ghana has actually set out to actually work with the milestones approach. And what do you call it? In August last year, our president made a fundamental declaration that we actually continuing with the nuclear power program based on the program comprehensive report that was submitted to him. So that actually ended phase 1 of the program, and he entered us into phase 2. So with regard to the IAEA, the NRA relates to the IAEA through the Nuclear Infrastructure Division of the IAEA, who actually have set up an integrated work plan. Now, this integrated work plan is actually based on the 19 issues that actually are in the milestones approach, and then we actually come up with areas of support in all the 19 areas that actually need to be supported. So the NRA has areas in the integrated work plan where we work with the IAEA on them, and the IAEA provides us support to actually be able to work on most of these activities. And the support, again, from the IAEA is linked to document reviews, expert missions, and then they actually also provide us with a lot of fellowships to other countries so that we can go and actually understudy other mature regulators. So actually, the support we are getting from these two organizations is very helpful. And for us as a young regulator, it's actually critical that we actually continue with this support, because that's the easiest way to learn. We cannot recreate anything. We just have to learn for what is existing and know how to actually move forward. So that's where we are with that.
Thank you so much. And I want to stay on this theme of international regulatory cooperation and harmonization. And Commissioner Wright, go to you. Could you tell us, from your perspective, what more needs to be done on international regulatory harmonization? And one question is, would you encourage or kind of foresee a Euratom-style consortium in sub-Saharan Africa?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I really think where we're at and what we're doing today is a little bit of an example, and I'm just going to piggyback a little bit here to just further explain the relationship between between DOE and us, right? DOE, if you go in simple terms, they are a promoter. They're like the salesman, okay? We're a safety regulator. We're going to make sure that whatever technology, whether it's, we don't pick winners and losers, they may support certain technologies in a grant or something like that. We have to be prepared at the NRC to regulate anybody who comes before us. So we're a safety regulator. They're the promoter salesman, but we have to be aware of what each other's doing so that we can come to events just like this right here, where we can show that, you know, when you get one, you get us all, right, in that cooperation. You know, I'm a big believer in the importance of international cooperation and information sharing. So it's, I mean, we conduct all kinds of international activities, from bilateral personnel and technical exchanges to, you know, with established regulators, to helping provide capacity building and help navigate the path forward for, you know, those who want to get into the space or are really trying to build upon what they're on now. doing right now. And that means, we may exchange personnel, we may train virtually, but in the end, we just want to make sure that you have the technical support and training that you need to do what it is that you want to do in your country. To give you an example, we have and we mentioned it yesterday, we have a bilateral agreement, memorandum of cooperation with the Canadian nuclear regulators. And, with the CNSC, we've been doing review of several different technologies that are going to be licensed and built in both countries, right? And we're trying to show that countries can work together in review of some of the technical parts of these designs and build a package of information and data that each sovereign country could submit in their regulatory process and not have to duplicate it twice, rebuild the wheel, so to speak, And that way you're able to use that data, but yet you maintain your sovereignty and making that decision for your people in your country. So I think it's something that can be the foundation for things going forward. So is it going to be? It's going to be our style, whether it's your Adam or anybody else. It's going to be the way the United States and the country we're working with, what works best for them and us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Commissioner Wright. Ms. Hammond, I have to look at my notes to make sure I get this title right, but you are the chair of the Technical Working Group for the Convention on Supplementary Compensation for Nuclear Damage, or the CSC. You always make me wish I'd gone to law school. And this working group works to establish a global regime to ensure that all countries have mechanisms for compensation in the event of a nuclear accident. And Ghana is already a treaty member. So could you tell us a little bit more about the treaty and also about your efforts to encourage other African countries to join?
Yes, that's right. So I think when we're talking about international regulatory harmonization, one of the things that I work a lot on is international nuclear liability. And that, is ensuring the prompt and equitable compensation for people, persons, and property in the event of a nuclear incident. And so in 1997, we started drafting the U.S., it was a U.S.-led delegation with the IAEA, and we started drafting the Convention on Supplementary Compensation for Nuclear Damage. I think as of now, there's over 170 reactors that are covered under that treaty, and we're very happy that Ghana is acceded to the treaty in 2016, and Ghana has also taken the lead and acceded to the Vienna Convention in 2020. And I think that, as we're speaking here, and I think Commissioner Wright alluded to with the NRA, the kind of expertise and the leadership of the Ghana Regulatory Authority in, taking these initiatives in global harmonization, and in particular with respect to working to establish a global regime in nuclear liability. And so that's on the international side, and we also work on the domestic side. So why is a nuclear liability regime important? We just talked about equitable compensation for people, property, and the environment in the event of a nuclear incident. And in addition to that, it also having a strong liability regime in place is a signal to your commercial organizations and other entities that want to invest in nuclear energy and developing nuclear energy technologies, that there's a strong liability regime provides legal certainty and also, helps in bringing those financiers and investments into this kind of technology. I think once you can say to a potential company or an investor or their board that you have legal certainty around liability, or you're a member of the Convention on Supplementary Compensation and have a strong domestic liability regime, it helps to make the case for their investors as well. And in addition to that, we're very appreciative of the the participation and membership of Ghana and trying to expand that liability harmonization across. And I think just one more point. The previous panel talked a little bit about, some of the things that faced the U.S. nuclear industry very early on. And one of those things was nuclear liability. Like we, in the 50s, we had several professors from Columbia and Harvard come together before Congress, and they developed a new type of liability regime called the Price-Anderson Act, eventually passed as the Price-Anderson Act. And at the time, there wasn't really anything similar on the market. But now, I think also, as they said on the panel, we've learned from that. We've established those regimes and those nuclear risk pools so that there's the expertise here to kind of see what other countries have done and what we've established in our own regimes and learn from that as you move forward.
Ms. Hammond, thank you so much. And it seems as well that having a strong liability regime would send, as you said, a signal to the private sector, but perhaps also would send a strong signal to the public. And so, Dr. Olote, I want to ask you, in a country that is working to start its civil nuclear power program, what is the role of the regulator in establishing public trust?
Yeah, that's a very important thing. Actually, the people and government of Ghana, they will require that the regulator will ensure that safety, security, and safeguards, what do you call it, are being upheld strictly in the program, because basically that's what we were set up to actually do, all right? So they expect that from us. And in that regard, public trust, it comes from the public seeing that the regulator is actually independent, competent, and capable to do the work that he was actually set up to actually do. So the NRA has recognized this, and one of the, we've actually set up a number of approaches to actually deal with this. One of the issues that we've actually found out, and which is very straightforward, is that we need to ensure that our people, we have sufficient people who are well-trained, skilled enough to be able to do the regulatory work that we have to do. And we recognize that the industry is a very high-skilled industry, so we need to be able to ramp up the capacity of our staff to be able to know what to actually do. And actually, in doing that, we've actually had to also work on engaging government, okay, so that government understands our role and actually see how they actually should play to, how they actually should work to make sure that we are well funded and also have the sufficient staff to actually do the work we have to do. So it's actually both ways. Government cannot expect us to do the work when they also don't do their part. So we actually engaging government that actually what they've asked us to do, it requires high skill. So they have to actually support us directly to actually be able to do that. Because that is what is going to engender public trust and knowing that we have the capacity to do what we have to do. So actually that is one area we've actually been working on. Another area we've actually been actually doing to engender public trust is to actually engage our local media a lot. We've actually been having press briefings and other meetings to actually educate the media on our role. And our understanding is that if the media understand what we are doing, they can also educate the public. And then they can let the public understand what we are doing and how that ensures that things are done safely and securely and in a safeguarded manner. The last thing which actually we've actually learned from other mature regulators is to actually involve the public in our licensing process. So what do you call it? Most of our regulations and guidelines, once we develop them, we actually open them up for broad stakeholder input. and then we actually get comments and reviews from them, and then we actually include them in the process. And then also in the licensing authorization process, we actually have public hearings. So with the area of public hearings, the public is able to come up and give their comments as to what they have to do. So actually, these are areas in which we are actually working and actually putting our hands to the wheel on to actually ensure that the public appreciates, and then it will hopefully increase public trust for what we are doing. So this is what we're doing.
Dr. Olote, thank you so much, and I really appreciate your points about how the regulator has to engage with the government and with the media and the press, and then of course also with the public. And I think, Commissioner Wright, I'd like you to talk to us about engagement with industry and the ideal way, or in your mind, for the regulator to engage with industry, and how can we make the point, or can we make the point, that innovation and regulation can work together?
That it hadn't always been the case. I do know that. You know, you've heard me say up here yesterday and today that I'm a big fan of early engagement, of pre-application discussions and stuff like that. What that really means, when you boil it down, is that we're meeting with the potential applicant about their technology in advance of them submitting a formal application for either a construction permit or an operating license. And the value there, there's really two, it helps us in two ways. One, as the regulator, it helps us because it lets us understand if there's anything new and novel about the design, are there any gaps where we may be short in technical expertise, or do we need to do some type of paper or something like that, to the topical report or something to address those issues. For the applicant, it also lets them understand a little bit more about what it is that the NRC is actually looking for in order for them to move forward and to address those aspects of the design that we may not be fully educated on in one way or the other. This can really save a lot of time, and in the business with the industry, time is money, and that's important. And I think it's important for us, again, you know, effective regulation doesn't mean that innovation has to be stifled. They actually can work together, and that's you know, you've heard me say this at least twice from up here, and that is the NRC's role, as I view it, is to enable the safe use of nuclear technologies, not to disable it. So it means you know, when we see a licensee or an applicant who comes in with something that's innovative or new and novel that we maybe haven't seen before, we got to be open-minded about it, and we need to communicate effectively about it as well. We just can't say, oh, that's different, so you can't do it, which is kind of what we've done in the past, really, when you boil it down. And I think, you know, we're trying to move in a different way on that. You know, we also need to ensure that regulation and innovation are not at odds, and so that they establish, you know, in a performance-based framework, a regulatory framework, that they can focus on measurable outcomes rather than prescribed methods. And you know, it can be left up to the applicant to come forward with what they feel creatively they can get through, and that's what we're trying to allow with our new regulatory process through Part 53. You know, if you've got a design you think can meet the test, we are going to allow you to bring it to us if that rule goes forward the way I envision it. And that way you can come to us, you make the safety case, and if you pass muster, then you'll be licensed. So bottom line, comes to us, it's going to be safe when it's licensed. Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Wright, thank you so much, and I really appreciate this insight that you just mentioned, that it's, you know, on the regulator to enable and not disable, but also I think on the industry to engage early and often. And the other kind of piece of wisdom that we often hear when we talk about the industry's responsibility is to incorporate security and safeguards by design from the get-go, so that they're not kind of aftermarket products. And that, again, also incorporating them from the start can save time and save money. So Ms. Hammond, could you talk to us a little bit about incorporating safety and security by design from the beginning, and the extent to which these measures might reduce the burden on the industry, especially when it comes to deploying, whether at home or abroad?
Thank you. Yeah, I think, I mean, to piggyback again on what Commissioner Wright just said, it's a really similar concept in early engagement with the regulators, with the IAEA on and the experts on various nuclear security issues, so that these measures can be incorporated in the designs. And when you're looking at something new that we haven't done before, a new type of coolant, or you're looking at new materials with different and how they react in different environments, incorporating those early. And I think it also goes to what we were talking about with public trust, and being able to go to your public and say, well, we've looked at this. I think in terms of we've looked at the recommendations from the IAEA, and we're certifying this design, and we're looking at how the NRC has gone through their design certifications, and looking at public health and safety, and also engaging the various non-proliferation groups, right, in terms of incorporating that. I know you've done a fair amount of work on this as well, so. I think I just have to echo the early engagement with all of the stakeholders, and also one of the things I think that we've done a really good job with between the DOE and the NRC is we have a lot of memorandums of understanding between the two agencies on how we're cooperating. I think after the Nuclear Energy and Innovation Capabilities Act was passed in 2017, we've done like a lot of work between ourselves and MOUs and establishing cooperation there. And so one of the things is kind of breaking down those silos that you find between different regulated bodies and international bodies on sharing of information.
Thank you so much. And this has been, I think, a really fascinating conversation. And again, I cannot stress enough just how important I believe the regulatory space is. So thank you to the three of you for sharing your time with us, and please join me in thanking our panelists.
Thank you too for moderating the session. We're going to hand out your tokens as usual. So you're going to be stepping to the front, and we'll take photographs, and then your tokens will be handed over to you. So a round of applause for them again. And then Shakur is on standby to hand over your tokens to you. And I know you all have your questions, especially the students, so you get the chance to ask your questions at the round table, which comes up right after. Thank you, Shakur. There'll be a photograph of you with your tokens. Right. All right, so time now for the roundtable discussion, and I know you have your questions ready. All the questions you wanted to ask much earlier on during the engagements and the panel sessions that you were not able to, you're going to get to ask them right now. All right, so we're going to have Alicia come up, and she's going to moderate this, yes, and together with, okay, so she's going to do that with Prof. Before I leave the stage, I want to know if you have any questions for me, because yesterday you... Okay, so I'm available.
Greetings, everyone. I'm so excited about the turnout of youth we had here today, and even more excited that you were able to stay the entire day with us. It was a huge opportunity for us to hear from you. And I think it was also a great opportunity to hear from each other that you all have shared challenges, shared concerns, and some of the things that you all have experienced that you were able to share with us. So since you weren't here yesterday, let me explain to you how this works. You've had a day to listen to the sessions. I'm sure you've had questions. I'm sure you have comments. And you might even have concerns. And the reason that I wanted you to be here today is so that we have the benefit of learning from you. Because nothing, or a few things do, taxes, my low salary, whatever, but nothing makes me more upset than us talking about including the youth and not actually including the youth. So that means we need to hear from you. I can say, because I don't live here, don't be shy, but I do understand that there are always sensitivities around expressing yourself and saying how you really feel, because that could potentially have some blowback. But I want you to treat this as an opportunity for you to share instructive, productive, and informational conversation and discussion with us, because you are actually informing the partnership that will continue to grow between the U.S. and the African countries. We are in Ghana this year. Who knows where we will be next year? I kind of know, but I'm not going to tell you, because we don't know each other that well yet. But I think this is a great opportunity for the U.S. contingent here. I think this is a great opportunity as we are partnering with the Ghanaians on a regional clean energy training center, which will be focused on workforce development. And I think this is a great opportunity amongst you and your peers to have conversations. So I do want you to know that Dr. Seth Deborah, young or old, whichever version showed up today, is a close friend of mine. And like most of my close friends, which there might be one, we disagree violently all the time. So therefore, this will be an interesting and entertaining conversation that I get to share the stage with Dr. Seth Deborah. So before I kick it off with my first question to you all, I will turn to Seth and see if you have anything you want to add.
Thank you very much, Alicia. I would like to invite the various panelists to join us in front here. I see Lawyer John Tua, my colleague bearded man. Yeah, but I need Lawyer John Tua to come close if even he's not getting a place in front. So let's just hold on for a while. He started growing his beard long before I started mine. It was one of my inspirations to grow beard. And we found out that the more you grow beard, the more you get close to being a panelist or being a speaker. So that's for the young people here. No, so we want you just over here so we can get a microphone to you just. Thank you very much, lawyer. Okay, so thank you once again, Alicia, and welcome everybody to this roundtable discussion. It's not focused on Ghana. Maybe it's something that didn't come out so clearly when we started this roundtable discussion. It's not for Ghana, it's for Africa. So the focus should be on Africa. We grow together if we want to do this and do this right. So we would like to hear from, I see my Nigerian friends, I see Rwanda, I see other countries. Let's bring our attention to how we grow this as Africa. We've talked about the youth, we talk about industry, we talk about regulatory, and all of these is focused on the youth. Without the youth, without the workforce, this whole industry will not work. So you've listened to so many views, opinions. We need to hear from you. What are the issues that you want to raise and what are the issues that needs to be discussed? So I'll pass it on to Alicia just to start with a question, and we are hoping to get a lot of questions from the floor. Thank you.
Thank you kindly. All right, so my first question is based on the experiences I have had in dealing with various African countries. And while I come from the United States, and you might have seen TV shows, documentaries, and even movies about how American children have a whole lot of leeway in the way that they behave and can speak their minds and all of that, I have seen in the African countries that it is a bit more constrained, definitely more rigid than American children and American young adults. And so I'm just curious to my young people, do you believe that you have the opportunity, and in what ways, what mechanisms do you have to provide feedback into your workplace, into your education, into the issues and things that affect you? Because I think it's very important that we, looking from the outside in, understand that. And if you feel like you have that type of freedom of expression, if you feel like you have those mechanisms in the workplace to offer suggestions for improvement, or if you're really just constrained by a cultural hierarchy that you as a young person have to just do whatever it is you have to do. Are you really able to infuse into the way, infuse and be a change maker? So I'll stop with that question and look to some hands in the audience. And I have some special guests that I put in the front row, all of whom are shy. So if they don't answer at least one question for me today, we will be here for quite some time.
Good afternoon again. I'm quick to answer this question because I kind of encountered it quite numerous times. There is a very big problem we have in Africa, and particularly in my country, in Ghana. Age is a problem, and so often is tied to the culture that the young do not talk to the older people or the elders of their mistakes. So when you rebuke or try to direct the older person, the first thing they see is, how old are you? And that's a problem in Ghana. Another thing we face is also gender. That even becomes a double problem if you happen to be a woman. So I wish that our agencies in Ghana, especially in the nuclear, the regulators and the commission, will have to change the status quo when it comes to our culture and be able to open doors and be more accessible and more receiving of criticism and also direction from the younger ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate your response, and I'm going to ask, because I had to search this entire room to find out who was talking. But I want you all to stand when you respond, please. And I see a gentleman over here on the left, and then in the middle section in the same row.
Okay, and when you take the microphone, please tell us a bit about yourself before you go on to your question.
All right, thank you very much. I am Onu Elijah from Nigeria, and I have little knowledge on nuclear energy, but though my field is information technology. I am talking from the perspective of my origin, which is Nigeria as a country. I grew up in a setting where before your parents give birth to you, you're already programmed. They have already discussed and agree from your birth to your future. So as you are coming as a child, you do not have any other option than to fit in into their own decision. Then secondly, even the educational system in Nigeria have made it so that there are some courses that if you are not good in such courses, they see you in that school as somebody who does not have a future. So it ends up affecting the young ones to a point they believe that we cannot go to school because simply we are not good in mathematics, because simply we are not good in chemistry. And you now see the great gap between those who know mathematics having cordial relationship with the teachers, and then these other ones that don't know mathematics, they are being despised, even among their classmates. So it causes some kind of depression emotionally and even intellectually. So if there is something we should do in order to arrest this situation, first of all, it will help us. Then, also, there are biases, like I have said earlier on, coming from the cultural aspect. It is also believed that if I want to ask a question, frankly speaking, out of 100% of us that are sitting here, most of us choose this nuclear energy as a course, not based on choice, but based on offer, because we don't have any other alternative that is open to us. Now, even in the Nigerian universities, I have seen situations where students have tried all their efforts to see how they can rate some courses. And there is an examination we usually take, they call it JAM, Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board. A brilliant student who have struggled for 6 years to finish from the SHS, then because of JAM, he or she is denied admission from the university. Then, when they finish writing, those whose parents have money that are not even intelligent, they now go and buy those slots from those schools because they see some sort of courses as those courses can make a good career for their children. So they buy courses like medicine and surgery, they buy courses like accountancy, they buy courses like law. Then these other ones that come from deprived homes, they are now thrown in courses that is never their choices. And then now you see people studying courses that they never loved. You see people doing things that they never loved. And the end result of it turns out being that when you study those kind of courses, you'll be left with no other choice to have this kind of employment mentality. You are only there to survive, but not to make a living again. Because all other choices you have had to have made as an individual have been cut off. So now you are left with no other choice than to accept what the society has given to you. So now you see that most of the unemployment we are having, or most of the underperformance that we are having, or most of the inefficiency we are having in the industries today, even in government, is because why? We have ended up studying what we never loved, and then now the motivating factor could only be that money is what is motivating us to do what we are doing. And at some point, when the money is not coming, it makes us feel like we are losing. So if there is any modality that is put in place to explain to our children, to take, because what we are seeing it in Accra. And Accra is far different from where I come from. Where I come from, even till now, people still trek. People still carry load on their heads. So all of these things we are talking here, when you get there, it makes no meaning to them. So that's why I made mention of that cultural bias, parental bias, teachers' bias. Then, even if the parents have their own bias, the culture have their own bias, the teacher have their own bias, but it all still go and affects the person, which is the students. So let us see what we can do about it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alfred Akron, and I'm a civil engineering student of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. So I believe that our parents do sometimes give us the chance, but it's sometimes us, the individuals, who we don't know how to go about things. Sometimes they give us the opportunity to express our ideas. Nowadays that it's been advocated everywhere. So some of our parents or our elders give us the opportunity to, bring on board ideas and all those stuff, which I think they are doing well. But then it also depends on us, the individuals, to put on our best behaviors. That's when they can come to us and then sort for ideas from us. We have to portray that we are serious in whatever we are doing. We have to portray that we are growing up to become responsible. And that is how our parents are shaping us to be. We sometimes see it as constraint, but, well, it's helping us. And it depends on how the parents does their training. I think that's also a factor. But then in all, they are seeking for the good of us. So I would urge the youth here that whatever our parents do to us, they want the best for us, actually. They want the best for us. So we have to align ourselves and put ourselves in place and then listen to them. Sometimes it's not easy, it's very difficult, but then you don't have any option than to listen to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's take a last one.
So we do have one of the ladies on the front row has her hand up. Let's hurry up and get her a mic before she changes her mind. Right here in the front. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Caroline Pwama, and I work at the Nuclear Regulatory Authority. Yes, what I have to say is that it's true that we have that culture that the elderly always want to dictate things for us. But as we are growing up and with the education and the exposure we have gotten, I think we need to rise up to the challenge. You need to be able to know what you want. You need to be confident to be able to convince your parents and to be able to prove yourself. Because sometimes they feel that maybe they, just as he said, they want the best for us. And if you are able to articulate yourself and then get the necessary knowledge and to prove to them that you know what you are about, you know what you want, they will allow you to do whatever you want. And also, in the education, just as the other guy was saying, you don't always have to look down on yourself. Even though there are challenges in maybe in the educational system in the country you find yourself in, you don't have to just accept it and say, oh, the system is bad, everywhere is bad. You need to, it's bad, all right, but then people are moving ahead, people are making it big. So you need to be confident and then to fight the challenges that are surrounding you to be able to go far. So that's what I want to add.
Thank you very much. But before we go to the next set of questions or elaborations or perceptions, just let me touch on one or two things. All the people who are young like myself will testify that things have changed or things are changing. In those days, when you come back from school and your father look at you, you know what it means. So these days, things are changing. It takes some time to change. And change is slow sometimes. But some of the restrictiveness that we have undergone has shaped us into what we are today. Sometimes you don't leave a child to go haywire, and then you try to bring the child back. It's difficult to straighten out the child like that. So the lady who, the first statement that you made, I mean, perfect. But you will also see, and more advanced people like my board member who gave the statement today will tell you that things are way better than they were in their time. In my office, any of my colleagues are here. You can step into my office at any time. It's just that when you step there, most of the time I'm not there. But once I'm there, I will listen to you. I play with almost all my staff. But at a point in time, you need to know how to deliver as a subordinate. You need to check the temperature of your boss when to say what to your boss. It's very important. I've served 2 director generals, a 3rd director general is in office now. When I step into the director general's office and I'm going to ask for something, resource, to undertake an assignment, I can look at the director general and say, oh, Prof, I will just pass by to say, check on you. Because at the time that I've gone there, you can see from his face and the load of work on his table that he is not up for nonsense. So you can wait, and sometimes I wait as late as 5:30, 6:30, just hoping that he will get down and then I can join him to the car park and lay my problems down. Or you go very early, 7 o'clock, the director generals are in the office. He's now coming in, he's more refreshed. And you can lay your problems down. There are ways to tell people you are stupid without he or her being angry. So know how to carve your words out. Know your directors or your superior's temperature. Know how to test those temperatures and know when to deliver. It's important.
Okay, so Seth said somebody can come in at any time. Atronam, did you write that down? So I just want to make sure that we normalize what the folks in the room are experiencing, because this is not something that is unique to Ghana, that is unique to Africa, because we experience that, of course, in the United States. I do mentoring workshops around the world, and in fact doing one this weekend in partnership with the Ghanaians and the Nuclear Energy Agency. I've done this around the world for high school students. We've welcomed mid-career engineers and STEM folks to our laboratories in the United States just this month, and everybody has the same challenge. And as we look at how we're going to build our workforce and build leaders in the nuclear sector, the thing that people fail religiously to talk about are these things. I call them soft skills, because you all are probably some of the brightest minds in Ghana. But there are these pieces of what you need for success around resilience, around leadership, around communication, that there's not enough focus on. And even professional development, because you can be the best and the brightest, but if you don't know how to leverage and build relationships, negotiate, communicate, get what you want out of people, which is nothing but influence, then you're going to have these challenges. And so I'm glad we can have this type of candid conversation about what you all experience, because how difficult it must be to say, from the moment you're in the womb, your parents have already said this is what you're going to do. I mean, my mother would have loved to hear that because I didn't listen to her at all ever. But I wanted to highlight that because I think culturally, sometimes when we think about prescriptions and plans and paths forward in nuclear, we're not thinking about what's going to work here, because what works in the United States or what works in Asia is not what's going to work here on the continent of Africa. So I appreciate you all being candid and sharing your experiences here. I do see a hand up right by the young lady, so if you wouldn't mind providing a mic there.
I have a mic.
Okay. I'm sorry, sir. Hold on. Okay, Seth, as last I checked, hold please. I see a question over here, and then I will come to you.
I see sabotage.
Okay, good day everyone. So I'm really delighted to be here. I am Prince Thompson, a climate change advocate and the co-founder of Safe Earth Africa. So just as you have said, there are peculiar situations that can be found in different countries and continents. For instance, the weather and climatic conditions that might give rise to some certain clothing, some certain foods, and so on. So we as youth must also learn to know that we have our own peculiar situations as Africans and then adapt to them. Then secondly, we have issues with transition. The youth need to understand very well that as eras changes, the focus on what becomes important to the economy also changes. For instance, we used to have eras where agriculture, mining, chemistry, and so on were very important aspects of the community. But as we talk, IT, nuclear energy, and other stuff are taking the global space. So how do we make this transition to be able to be at par with the global space? For instance, the meeting that we are having now, if you decide to hold it on Zoom, how many youth will be willing to attend? But as Afri-capitalists, I so much believe on anything that can save cost too. So imagine that we are holding this meeting on Zoom. How many youths will be ready to attend? I got most of my learning opportunities, I do them online, and I've been able to learn very well. We have some massive open learning courses online there that are there for people to learn, people who are disadvantaged educationally, leadership, emotional intelligence, and so on. But how do we make this transition for the youth to be able to garner these opportunities and then make changes so that someone in Africa, someone in Nigeria, someone in Ghana will be able to meet his colleague in the US, and then they can speak in a global sphere. So that is my main interest. Presently, I'm trying to drive a process where we can get youth to learn about climate change, the advantage of nuclear energy over other sources of energy because of its low carbon emission, and so on. So how do we drive these processes? Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Peter, right? Yeah.
Prince Thompson.
Prince Thompson. Okay, that's a good one. We will go for another question. Before that, immediately I saw your haircut, I knew you were a climate person. So, yes, please, Divine.
All right, I thought I should just put this one in. So when you take the microphone, please be brief, and please don't think that I'm trying to stifle you or anything. I mean, you can get to speak, but if you're brief enough, then we can have others also.
Thank you very much, Israel. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my question is basically about the overlapping relationship between change management and then stakeholder engagement. Now, I'll go as low as even our parents. Now, at this point in time, as Ghana is deciding to go nuclear, we have this issue of misconception, and most of us, or some of the panelists, actually made mention of that along the session. Now, my point is this: how is our engagement going such that the kind of misconception people have about nuclear can get so clear to everybody in the various African countries, or let me say, for example, Ghana, such that the message becomes very, very fundamental, that everybody understands, and a parent can even suggest to the child, a male or a female, that I encourage you to go into nuclear. I'm sure when we address this, I'm sure the 100 and so years that we intend, that kind of relationship we want to have with the USA, we will have people ready to embrace nuclear technology so that we can benefit fully from that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to bring in a colleague of mine, Etonam, who is into stakeholder engagement and how Ghana is looking at change management and stakeholder engagement. If you brief, we have two questions behind us.
Okay, so my name is still Etonam, and I'm with the Nuclear Power Institute. So sometime last year, I was reviewing the academic curricula we have, and I noticed that the first mention of nuclear was in grade 6 or class 6. And surprisingly enough, it was used as an example of bad sources of power. And that alone kills the conversation when you start. So what are we doing? We are trying to put together a revised curricula, something we can insert into the existing system. And the hope is that every time a child picks a book, be it from class 1, going through, you have nuclear right there in your face, telling you about the benefits, the opportunity. Every year it keeps going on and on. Also, we are working on putting together some essay writing competitions for the young ones and some arts competitions in relation to nuclear. So the hope is over time, the incoming generation would have the positive brainwash that nuclear is positive, nuclear is a good thing, nuclear has come to stay. And of course, this is not necessarily biased towards energy production, but the several applications of nuclear, be it in health and the respective fields. So again, it's my hope that the incoming generations would have a much more better appreciation of nuclear as compared to our parents. But again, these are just some of the activities we are doing, and I can go on and on and on, basically. Thank you.
So our stakeholder activities are like you splitting the uranium atom. You never know whether you're going to get 3 neutrons after the split or 2 neutrons after the split. It's a probabilistic. You need to always track what you are doing. So we don't say we've set out things for this year and it's cast in stone. Anything can change at any point in time. You need to adapt as quickly as possible to give the information out and make sure it's clear enough. Okay, 2 questions. I have my Nigerian friend and then the gentleman behind him also, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Awal Bisala. I work with the Nigeria Atomic Energy Commission.
I'm actually making a comment which is coming from the perspective of regional cooperation and collaboration. Over 10 years back, the African Commission on Nuclear Energy was established, and I kept thinking all these years, this institution that was established to address peculiar challenges and issues as it connects to the nuclear space within the continent, have we really been able to utilize that platform to address our common and peculiar issues within the continent? Because for me, I see it as a platform that is supposed to engender collaboration and partnership in a way that we can sit together, look at our common issues, and then confront those issues as an entity. Sometimes, again, I see AFCON playing the role of what IAEA is to the global community. So I don't know, I'm just asking if there's a way we can rejig this mechanism so that the continent can be supported in terms of injection of not only nuclear power, but nuclear science and technology generally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The president of AFCON was supposed to join us this afternoon, but I think something else came up. I'm looking at Nia Lote because he is a regulator, and I think the Pelindaba Treaty that's AFCON was based on in setting it up, he is very much familiar with it, so I'll try and bring in Nia Lote. Please, he's the man in white with white hair. Just locate him.
Hello. Yeah. The role of AFCON is actually very important. Definitely, AFCON can actually help play the role the IAEA plays internationally. So yes, I do agree that we need to actually engage with AFCON and see how AFCON can actually support us to actually actualize an African renaissance in nuclear energy. So to the speaker, yes, I do agree with you. And I think that we need to find a way to actually have a meeting with AFCON, having representatives from the various countries that are actually developing their nuclear energy programs. And then we sit down and chart a way forward as to how AFCON can support directly to actually ensure that we actually achieve this goal. AFCON is actually situated in South Africa, that's the base, and what do you call it? They actually linked to the Pelindaba Treaty Organization. So what do you call it? They promote that in the regional sense of also promoting the entire nuclear energy program. So I think that I'm in agreement with you, and we need to discuss this further as we go on. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take the next question from the gentleman in glasses with the toothpick in his mouth. Let's make it snappy, if possible. We
Hello.
have
Hello.
very little time.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Salom, Richard Salom. I was actually invited here, and I studied Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, so I have no knowledge in nuclear energy. But then coming here, it has been very, very insightful and, I mean, mind-opening. And I have a lot of questions, actually, starting from...
Let's ask one for now.
One for now, okay. So one of the questions that it's actually, like, one of the questions that I really want to ask is about the youth with regards to skills in energy, nuclear energy. So for me, I'm really, really concerned about we, the youth, and employment and having skills. And if you look at the nuclear energy space, it means that you need to attained some level of knowledge, right? And if you really look at people who have not really gone to school, let me say it like that, some of them are really interested in wanting to know more about nuclear energy and wanting to gain skills in them, but probably because of financial situations, they are not able to gain that knowledge. So what I want to know is that how is it possible for skills acquisition for the youth in terms of employment when it comes to the nuclear energy space? Thank you.
Okay, so skill acquisition, who do I throw it to? Let me call in one of my board members. He's not a nuclear person, he's a pre-second, that's what he is. But please bring the microphone here. But he has a lot of, or an in-depth knowledge in the energy industry. Second lane, yeah. Right here, second one.
Yeah.
He has a depth of knowledge in the energy industry, and he has worked with a lot of youth to bring them up to speed in terms of skill level. So he will give you a short, just 1 minute response, and then you see him for more. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for putting me on the spot like that, Prof. I think the question that has been asked is one that really cuts across many of the issues confronting us as a nation. And to cut to the chase, it actually presents a serious fundamental issue as to the security of our nation in the years ahead. In the organization that I belong to, and which brought me to NPI, we have identified the acquisition of skills by our youth as something that must not be left only to government. It is something that private sector must actively engage in and support. And therefore, we have tried to take advantage of every opportunity to work hand in hand with organizations like the GIZ and other organizations that provide support for vocational training. When it comes to the nuclear sector, for example, we have heard it said that it's not just nuclear scientists that have opportunities to work there. There are a lot of skills, from plumbing to welding, that are critical to the sector. So the misconception out there is that maybe you need to have a master's degree or have a bushy beard like the man on the stage. But really, as long as you are willing to learn, and somebody has said here earlier that these days, the opportunity to gain knowledge is so much more than what existed in my time. There is really no excuse for you to be bereft of knowledge that is relevant to what we have to do today. So please, the questioner, I will be happy to have a discussion with you after the session and share additional information with you. But thank you for raising this issue. It's one that really is core to the future of the African continent. Thank you very much.
So thank you. We're going to hold any further questions now because I think we have come to the end of this session. I had mentioned that there would be an opportunity following this session to participate in a networking event. And we have in the room at this time members of the United States government, members of the United States industry, some of the US companies that are developing technology and services for this very exponential growth of advanced reactor technology. We have some of our university representatives present and some of our national laboratories present. And there's an opportunity for you to ask some more questions about the types of ways that young African students will have the opportunity to talk to colleagues in the United States. We brought them here just for that reason. I also want to encourage you not to be shy when approaching these folks who will have, I call it speed dating. There is an opportunity to schedule an appointment and sit for 20 minutes with these various folks. Now, as I've said before, there are people in the room that I know have the authority and ability to hire. They have the authority and ability to grant internships. They have the authority and ability to include you in programs such as this. And I think it's very important that you think about this as an opportunity that could pay dividends for you in your future. Because these opportunities that you have people in the room that can be a direct asset to you, or make a phone call, or send an email, or provide information that you might need. I think it's a critical opportunity that doesn't come around too often. I know because I don't answer some of their emails and they don't answer some of mine. So the fact that we have them here, I think will be a great opportunity for you to do some networking. And I am waiting to find out whether I need to have you all. Eternam, please give instructions to our MC so that we can take care of the next step. So Eternam is going to meet you right over there because he has some instructions. So I want to make sure that you use this opportunity. I cannot underscore the importance of two things that we've talked about, which are networking and mentoring. These are things that I think take your education, your experience, your skill set, all that you bring to this, added with a mentor or expanding your network, and exponentially help you grow, develop, and get in those rooms that you need to be in. So that is going to be my final piece of advice to you. And I believe we are now ready to close this session. And I'm so grateful for your attendance today. And thank you so much for your candid comments and questions.
Thank you very much, Alicia and Professor Deborah. Okay, so there's just something that I thought I should touch on, following from what one of you said about the fact that, yes, the youth is often spoken to rather than heard or listened to. And I thought I should let you know that there's a reason. It's been changing, as Professor Deborah said. It's changing. And that's the reason we have the youth in this summit. We brought you in, we want to hear from you, and we've heard from you. And this is not going to be the very last of it. As was indicated, you can get to network with some of the people in here. But right now, we're going to have to exit the room. There's no coffee break, though. I'm sorry about that. I told you there was going to be a coffee break. I'm sorry. There's not going to be a coffee break. This is the end of today's session, essentially, except we have the networking session that's going to come up. Some people have booked, so it's by appointment. You've booked to get to see somebody in particular. We're going to do that. But we'll just exit the room. They're going to rearrange the tables, and then we can come back in for that session. If you haven't booked, and there's somebody you'd like to see, there's a good opportunity for you to interact with that person as well. So a round of applause to Alicia and Professor Deborah. So we'll just move out for just about 10 minutes and we'll rearrange the seating and the tables for the networking session.